The Great Depression was one of the most significant events in the history of the world, with far-reaching and lasting impacts that are still felt to this day. Spanning from 1929 to 1939, this period of economic hardship brought a profound change to the global economy, affecting millions of people around the world. The causes of the Great Depression were many and varied, and its effects were felt in virtually every aspect of society. Unemployment skyrocketed as businesses shut their doors and people were left without work. Poverty became widespread, with many families struggling to put food on the table and a roof over their heads. Despite these difficult conditions, the human spirit remained strong, and people found ways to adapt and survive. Governments, businesses, and individuals all worked together to find solutions and bring an end to this difficult time. So sit back, grab a snack, and get ready to dive into one of the most significant events of the 20th century and discover the story behind the Great Depression.
Wall Street, it was another case of whiplash. The markets haven't been this volatile in almost 80 years. For the past 50 days, the S&P 500 has whipsawed up and down an average of nearly 4% every day. That hasn't...
You are now watching the White Obsidian channel.
The Great Depression was a dark period in world history, marked by a prolonged period of economic hardship that affected people all around the world. It lasted from 1929 to 1939 and had a profound impact on the global economy, leading to widespread poverty, unemployment, and homelessness. Before the Great Depression, the U.S. economy was characterized by a period of rapid economic growth and prosperity, known as the Roaring Twenties. During this time, the stock market boomed and many people invested in the stock market, hoping to make a quick fortune. The stock market speculation was fueled by the widespread belief that stock prices would only continue to rise. On October 24th of that year, the stock market experienced a dramatic crash, which caused panic among investors and led to a massive sell-off of stocks. This event, known as Black Thursday, was just the start of a much larger economic crisis that would engulf the world for the next decade. The banking system was also vulnerable during this time, with many banks holding large amounts of stocks and loans that were backed by stocks as collateral. As stock prices fell, many banks found themselves in financial difficulty and began to fail. This led to a wave of bank failures and a loss of confidence in the banking system, which only served to worsen the economic crisis. In addition to the stock market speculation, the underlying causes of the Great Depression included economic inequality, government inaction, and lack of regulation. The concentration of wealth in the hands of a few individuals made the economy vulnerable to collapse, as these wealthy individuals were less likely to spend money and stimulate the economy, as if it weren't any different with today's modern society. Furthermore, the unequal distribution of wealth during the 1920s meant that the large portion of the population did not have disposable income to sustain the economy during the crisis. The government was also partly to blame for the Great Depression, as it failed to regulate the economy and prevent speculative bubbles from forming. The government's laissez-faire approach to the economy allowed for the conditions that led to the Great Depression to develop. For example, the Federal Reserve, the country's central bank, could have taken steps to stabilize the banking system after the stock market crash, but it failed to do so. The unemployment rate reached an all-time high of 25% in 1933, and millions of people were left without a source of income. This led to widespread poverty, with many people unable to afford basic necessities like food, shelter, and clothing. Homelessness was a major problem during those times, with many people forced to live in makeshift shelters or on the streets. For example, the Hoovervilles, named after President Herbert Hoover, were makeshift communities of homeless people that sprang up in cities and towns across the country. The agricultural sector was also hit hard, with many farmers facing low crop prices and towering debts. This created a vicious cycle where the lack of consumer spending led to reduced production, which in turn led to even fewer jobs and even less spending. This was particularly devastating in the Great Plains, where a combination of drought and soil erosion led to the Dust Bowl, which was a period of severe dust storms and soil erosion that lasted from 1934 to 1939. The Dust Bowl resulted in the displacement of thousands of farmers who were forced to move to other parts of the country in search of work and a better life. The effects of the Great Depression were felt all around the world, including countries such as Germany, Japan, and the Soviet Union, all experiencing economic hardship. It also had a profound impact on global trade as countries turned inward and imposed protectionist trade policies in an effort to protect their own economies. This protectionist approach to trade only served to deepen the economic crisis, as countries reduced their imports and exports, leading to even fewer jobs and even less economic activity. People were losing faith in the government and the capitalist system, which led to the rise of political extremism. The growth of fascist and communist movements in many countries, including across Europe, was a direct result of the Great Depression. These movements gained popularity by promising to fix the economic problems that were plaguing society, but in many cases, they only made things worse. The Great Depression officially ended in the United States in 1939, with the start of World War II and the subsequent economic boom that accompanied the war effort. However, the recovery was uneven, and many people still struggled with poverty and unemployment well into the 1940s and 50s. One of the key factors that contributed to the end of the Great Depression was the extensive government spending that took place during the war effort. The government made massive investments in a wide range of public works projects, including the construction of roads, bridges, buildings, and military production. This, of course, created job opportunities, stimulated economic growth, and helped to bring the country out of the Great Depression. Another important factor was the increased demand for goods and services from American soldiers overseas. This led to higher prices and production, which helped to further drive the economy forward. The end of the Great Depression also saw a shift in the way the government approached economic policy. The New Deal programs initiated by President Franklin D. Roosevelt were broadened, and the government took a more proactive role in regulating the economy and providing support to those in need. This marked a departure from the laissez-faire capitalism and signaled a move towards a more interventionist approach to economic policy. In addition, the lessons learned from the Great Depression led to significant reforms, such as the establishment of a social security system, the creation of government-backed deposit insurance, and the regulation of the stock market to prevent speculation and reduce the risk of future financial crises. The legacy of the Great Depression continues to have a lasting impact on the country and the world today. Many of the reforms and policies put in place during that time still shape the way that we approach economic policy and continue to influence the political, economic, and social landscape of the country. The widespread poverty, unemployment, and social unrest caused by the Great Depression led to a dramatic rise in poverty and homelessness. Millions of people lost their jobs and homes, and many were forced to rely on charity or government assistance to survive. The poverty and desperation of the time was captured in the photographs of photographers such as Dorothea Lange and Walker Evans, which helped to bring attention to the humanitarian crisis. The Great Depression also played a significant role in shaping the post-World War II Bretton Woods system, which was established in 1944 and set the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, laying the foundation for the current system of global finance. The official end of the Great Depression was marked by the start of World War II on September 1, 1939, which brought a new wave of economic activity and created millions of jobs. The massive amounts of industrial production required for the war effort and the US government's investments in defense spending helped to jumpstart the economy and bring an end to the Great Depression. However, it was not just the war that brought an end to the crisis. A series of government policies and programs, such as the New Deal, also helped to stimulate the economy, provide support for those in need, and establish a foundation for a more active role for government in the years to come, making it one of the most important and effective government responses to a major economic crisis in the country's history. The creation of the Social Security Act in 1935 and the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 were two key policies of the New Deal that helped to improve the lives of millions of Americans. The Social Security Act provided a safety net for older Americans and helped to reduce poverty among the elderly, while the Fair Labor Standards Act established a minimum wage and set the maximum number of hours that an employee could work in a week. The experience of the Great Depression highlights the importance of government intervention in times of crisis. The government's response to the crisis demonstrated its ability to provide relief to those in need, stimulate the economy, and lay the foundation for a more just and equitable society. It also showed the importance of regulation in ensuring a stable and fair economy. Despite its devastating impact, the Great Depression was also a time of innovation, creativity, and determination. It saw the rise of new forms of artistic expression, such as blues and swing music, and inspired the leadership of figures like Franklin D. Roosevelt, who implemented bold and innovative policies to address the crisis. The legacy of the Great Depression is an important part of our history, reminding us of the lessons learned during those difficult times. It was a call to action to strive for a more equitable and fair society and to never forget the lessons of the past. Honoring the legacy of the Great Depression, as they say, means working towards a more equal world and learning from the events of the past. Which is quite the ironic statement considering our current leaders still can't seem to prevent another financial crisis. But we must keep pretending to learn from history and do better, right? So let's continue to remember the hardships and triumphs of the Great Depression and hope that future generations don't make the same mistakes. Because clearly, we're still figuring it out.